Hey y'all, welcome back. I'm Shayna Cersei. I'm so excited to paint with you today for another day of our watercolor journal ideas. Today I am masking out here just a shape in the middle because I want some clean edges on this. But we're going to do a few weeks back or couple, I'm not even sure how long ago it was, we did some colorful patterns where we kept simple pattern shapes and filled them in with these bright bold colors and then did some line on top of it as well as bleed proof white on top of it to make some just fun little patterns, little doodles. And people really liked that. We're going to do something similar today. I have not tried this before, but we're going to take that same idea or concept, but we're going to make like building shapes. So like a little stacked village. So let's see how that goes. I'm not sure. Okay. So same idea where we're going to start building on top of each other, but these shapes are going to be more rectangular, I think, in shape. And I'm going to really push myself to try to vary the shapes because it can be really easy, I think, to get stuck in, like I'm already struggling for shapes because I don't want to make a million of these either. So I want some of them to be bigger. All right, I'm just going to make basic shapes. I'm trying not to let the edges line up perfectly with each other. Again, I have to find that kneaded eraser. And then I can make variations on them if I really want. So I'm going to go through. And you know what? I am going to make some rounded tops and maybe some triangular tops. There's a little bit of Tetris in here, so let's make this one rounded. I have trouble making straight vertical lines without a ruler. They always seem to slant this way. It's just what I do. All right, so let's make one over here. So this is a great exercise where you're not trying to copy something that is known, like a particular vase or a flower or an animal. So there's no rules in exactly how it has to look, but your brain does have to do the work to make it look interesting to you and to the viewer. All right, so let's do like a really big one here to kind of fill some space. And I'll put windows and stuff in these with our bleed proof white later on, or you could use gouache. If you wanted different colors of gouache, you could layer on top of. Do another somewhat rounded one over here, so that'll be rounded. Then like this one here, this one will be lower, this one will be taller, and just filling in all of these spaces. See how these angle so much? I have to really be conscious of my lines. Whoops. Okay, so I have most of my spaces filled in. So I have these nice like stacked, and now I'm just going to look for areas where I can break things up a little bit more. I'm definitely going to have lots of windows in things, like smaller windows like this that I'll do. I'm not going to draw them all out because I'm just going to put them on top in bleed proof white as like a pattern. So windows, we can even have circular windows. They don't have to be. But the trick with something like this, and what's good, is to really get your brain to think of variation. Sometimes it's as simple as coming up with 4 or 5 different simple patterns and repeating them multiple times in lots of different ways. It doesn't have to be too complex. And I'm trying not to make two spaces that are too small that I'm going to paint in, or that will be super challenging as well. All right. I think that looks good. I think there, and again, I'll put more interior windows in later. Now I am going to limit my color palette. Let's limit the color palette. So last time I did these really bright, bold colors. Let's stick with, we could either do, you can limit your color palette in lots of ways. Analogous, you can do monochromatic, you could do all cool, all warm colors. Let's do, I'm tempted to do all cool colors because I feel like that is calming and resonates with people a lot more. But then bright colors can really, or warm colors can really energize you as well. All right, I'm going to stick with a cool color palette. Actually, I saw the one that we did last time, one of you all, I can't remember the name, but someone who has an Instagram account tagged me in that same project where we did the patterns, and they did it in all cool colors, which looked fabulous. So I'm going to take some inspiration from you, and I am also going to do a cool color palette. So blues, purples, and cool greens. So I'm going to take, I have this beautiful cobalt teal. I have phthalo blue. I'm just going to actually swatch out a couple colors here so that it can help me decide. So swatching can be really helpful. And you can see things next to each other. I have this beautiful purple. And you could be like, yes, yes, yes. No, I definitely don't want that color. Or, oh, I might swap that out for this. I have ultramarine, which is a very warm blue, so it can add interest and contrast to a cool color palette. But what else? Greens. Let's see. I have Viridian green. I might just use sap, which is not my favorite green. I really don't like the Viridian from Core. It's not my favorite. It just is really hard to get it to come out pretty saturated. Love you, Core, but I think Viridian green is one of your weaker colors. So, oh, let me just make sure you can see my whole palette out here. So this is the Viridian green by Core, and I just feel like it's a weak, it's highly transparent, and it's just a little bleh. I prefer making a cool green with sap green and phthalo blue, similar tones, but this one is just much more vibrant and saturated versus this one. So here, I'll swatch out this Viridian green. So not terrible. I just feel like I have to do a lot more work to get it as saturated as I want it, versus this one just comes out beautifully and like really hangs on. And they're very similar, but so this is the color palette we could work with. And I could even, you could even go, so if we wanted to do purple, but like cheat a little bit, put a little magenta in there and warm that purple up a little bit, that gives us another, like a warmer version of purple to add some interest. All right, I have a cerulean. Trying to think of anything else. I think I'm going to stick with these. So I'm not, or I have yeah, I have a cerulean blue, but I like the cobalt teal better. This is the cerulean blue, which is like a really great blue. Okay. enough chatting about colors. Let's get painting. We've already wasted, well, we haven't wasted, but we've used up a lot of time. Okay, so I'm going to start with my phthalo blue. And what I think I want to achieve with these is some gradient. So I think I want them, I was thinking I wanted them to be darkest on top and then get lightest towards the bottom, but I think I'm going to do it the opposite. Darkest on the bottom and lightest on the top. So I already have some work to do on this building. So I'm making this a flat wash. I'm actually going to pull out some color. And then I'm going to add so wet on wet. Rinsed my brush off. I have just a damp brush. Just going to blend that a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to leave that and let that dry and skip to another area. So we're going darkest to lightest. So from now on, I'm going to start at the bottom of my buildings with a nice saturated bit of color. I'm using a size 12 brush right now. Depending on the size of your buildings in the sketchbook, you might want to change sizes. I'm definitely going to change sizes at some point as we get into some of the smaller areas. And you can stick with one color and try to place it in a bunch of places first and then build in other colors. So we have a lot of this color here. Do I want to put that somewhere else? Maybe I'll do this building back here in the back. Like as I'm painting these, I'm seeing how slanted my lines are. It's okay. This is not a commissioned piece. This one's not going up on the wall. If it were, I would get a ruler out. I would make sure all my lines are straight, but we're just playing with concept here. And this can be a great way to like play with color palettes, play with concept and design, not get too like married to anything, but just work your way through it and then be like, oh, this would make a lovely large piece. And then take everything you learned from your journal and go in and make a bigger piece, but using a lot more time, a lot more patience, a ruler, you know, whatever it is that you need to do. All right. Let's bring in some more of this cobalt teal. I'm going to put one over here in this rounded piece. And definitely as you're working along, things can look kind of messy or as they're building until everything's really together in place. And then it starts to feel like cohesive. All right. What am I going to do this really big building? That is the question because it's going to be a huge focal point. I think I'm going to do it in purple, but I'm not sure. Well, I'm going to save purple then. Okay, so jumping around here, we'll go up here. We'll do Viridian, this sap and this green. It's sap green and phthalo blue to make a really cool green. And my hope with this going from dark to light on the bottom, from bottom to the top, like as the dark bottoms kind of line up with the lighter tops, it'll give a really cool effect. There we go. Oh, that green is lovely. Let's put that in some other places. I'm going to put that down here. I am going to switch to a slightly smaller brush. Maybe this is too small. There we go. Where else? Let's do some of these other small ones now that I have this small brush out. And I do have to get some of that purple and magenta purple in here. All right, I might speed up this video a little bit because this is just the same thing over and over again. So you go and make your color choices and apply the same concept to each, and we'll come back when everything is filled in, and then we'll start to add the texture on top, our windows and other little additions. All right. All right, we have all of our little spaces filled in, and now we're going to get to the details on top. You can definitely add additional layers. Like some of these, I went back and added another layer, so I add another layer here. I might add one right here, just because this gradient, I'm finding the cobalt teal does have a harder time doing a smooth gradient. The color just likes to stop. You have to be a little more hands-on with the wet on wet with it. But yeah, go ahead and do other layers if you want to boost up the color in some areas or the contrast. And then make sure everything is dry. And now we're going to go in with our bleed proof white, and I'm going to add on some details. So I have my bleed proof white here, Dr. P.H. Martin's. I'm going to take a little bit out into the cap and add a little bit of water to it, just because mine's a little thick. You don't want to water it down too much because you don't want it to be transparent. You want it to maintain its opaqueness. And I already got a little splatter right there on my building. I'm going to forgive myself and just move on. All right. So I'm just going to go ahead and start using the white. Now you could use gouache if you wanted to use like yellow or other colors on top. You could definitely do that. You don't have to use just white, but I'm going to use white. I'll decide if I'm going to go in with any pen later on. And I'm doing these pretty sloppily, I would say, but I'm okay with that. I'm kind of just sketching them in. I'm not worrying about them being perfect. I want these to be kind of funky, fun little buildings. I'm going to go all the way down. And I'm not going to add windows onto every single building or details. I'm going to leave some of them as is, I think. Right, this one I'm going to do round ones, and I'm going to go back in afterwards and put some darker lines on top, I think. That way they don't look just like polka dots. Although you could have polka dotted buildings. All right, so let's put in a few others. And you could make them different shapes. So these could be rectangles this way. Versus vertical. I'm going to add in something right at the bottom like a door. Oh, this gouache is, or not gouache, this bleed proof white is so thick. There we go. All right, let's see. Let's add a door down here on this one. I'm going to give it a rounded top. And then windows, which are just going to be little flecks all about the same size. This purple building, I have not decided what I'm going to do with that yet. This one here, we're going to do really tall. I think I'm going to leave these alone here, but because this is coming off the side, I'm going to go right up to the side, but we're going to do really tall, rounded off windows. And as I'm doing this, I'm kind of feeling like it's all looking a little too the same with the white. But so I'm definitely going to add, I think what I'm going to do is add some darker colors as windows in watercolor, not pen. So like on my purple, I'm going to do darker purple over top. All right, so let's get in some darker purple here. And then I'm going to do, actually, you know what? I'm going to do like windows down the center, like that. And then some wider ones along the sides. So there, I think that adds a little fun contrast to this little cityscape here, instead of doing all the windows in white. And like rethinking it, I may have done a few less or spaced them out a little differently, but that's okay. That's how we learn. And again, this is the journal. I'm not planning this out perfectly for, you know, using a ruler. I'm kind of leaving it funky, just getting things blocked out, creating some fun patterns, learning what I'd like and what I don't like. And then if you wanted to bring this to a more finalized, bigger piece, you definitely can. You can refine things. There we go. And then let's see, I think I'm going to, so these are dry. I'm going to come in, whoops, that was not what I wanted to do. I am actually going to pull this out. I'm going to let that dry and put more bleed proof white on top, but these I'm actually going to use a pen on top of, my Micron pen, and just add some detail. So I'm just going to put a line across them like this to give them a little detail of like a window sill. I'm just scribbling on my tape here, so if I pick up any of the bleed proof white, just wiping it off. Actually, I think this, oh, I'm using a gray pen. That's why it's so light. It's the color is gray, not black. I'm like, why is this such a light color? What size is this? Okay. This should, there we go. Work a little darker. There we go. So we have some little details there. You can do that same thing. I'm going to put little cross windows on these white ones here. You can outline some of your windows. Outline these. And then when you're all done putting in your patterns, you can take off your tape and see what you have. All right, I'm going to leave everything the way it is, although, you know, this isn't my favorite one of something like this I've done. I feel like I could have done a few things differently, but I am going to own it. I love the color palette. All right, I'm going to leave the rest of that alone. I'm going to throw in a few more white spots. I'm going to put a door here, something that resembles a door down below. Big tall windows. Here, fill those in a little bit more. And then some small ones back here. The other smaller buildings I'm going to leave. Like the ones poking up around here. Actually, this green one, I know I keep saying I'm going to be done. This green one I'm going to do in darker green. And which other one? I feel like I have to do at least one more in a darker color. I'm going to use some ultramarine blue on this cobalt teal, because I feel like if I used cobalt teal, it wouldn't be dark enough. There we go. That looks good. Some darker green. All right, and then I'm going to leave the others untouched. I really don't like what I did here, but that's okay. And that's how we learn. I learned what I don't like and what not to do. I'm going to give this a quick dry. We're going to peel off our tape and see what it looks like. All right, there we are. We have our cool color. So we went with all cool colors on the color palette, little cityscape. We added lots of little details with gouache, or I'm sorry, bleed proof white and ink. Rethinking this, I would leave the ink out most likely, but it is what it is, and we learned a lot today. So thanks so much for joining me. I'm Shayna Cersei. Go ahead and give this a try. Let me know what you think. What would you have done differently, left out, added to it? And I'll see you for our next video.